Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Overland Weekly, episode number 18. So it's only been maybe a little less than a week than we got the last episode out with Jeff. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed that. I've been trying to get Jeff on for a while, and we finally made that happen. So tonight I have Mark Lawson from Trail Team Challenge joining me. Florida Trail Team. Is it Florida Trail Team Challenge or just Trail Team Challenge?
Yes and no. So we're dropping kind of the Florida because for some reason people are like, oh, it's just a Florida thing. It's absolutely not. We've had teams from all over the country. So we're kind of going with the Trail Team Challenge.
Gotcha. Let me give you guys a little backstory. I've got a friend. We've got a mutual friend, Mr. Ray Towner, and Ray's a phenomenal guy. And I'll pull up a picture of Ray, my favorite picture that I've got here. Let's see if I can double click this. There we go. There's Ray. This was at G Smitter up at Windrock, and anyhow, Ray messaged me a few weeks ago and was like, hey, I'm involved with this Trail Team Challenge event, and it's really cool, but not as many people know about it as they need to, and you need to get them on the show and talk about it and, just do your thing. And you can't turn down Ray. So I said, absolutely. So he introduced me to Mark, and here we are tonight. So thank you, Ray, for lining this up and kind of getting this show to happen. So, Mark, before we dive into the event, let's give people a little bit of background about yourself. I always want to know about your personal rig, your personal wheeling setup, but I found out that you've actually this is what you do professionally. You've got a shop in Tampa, Florida, called the Jeep Lab. So I have a feeling you may have more than one project that's rolling around. Tell us a little bit about the Jeep Lab and also about your current build.
Yeah, so the Jeep Lab started in February of 2018. So we've been up and running for a while. Been a staple in the community. Really enjoyed that. Pretty much do everything but motor swaps. I don't really get into that or transmission stuff. But anything new and old we do. And it is just me. It's a smaller shop. Jumping out to do this was really more about just enjoying life and honestly getting away to go to more off-roading events and do more off-roading without those 2 weeks a year or, having to ask your boss for time off. It's like, man, I can bust my tail and then I can close up shop for a month and go to Moab if I want to, so it's really a quality of life thing when I decided to really go into this and do it full time. But yeah, been up and running for a few years and love it. Right now at the shop, I've got one of my rigs. Yeah, I've had quite a few. Actually just offloaded a couple FCs, believe it or not. We had two of them and let those go here. Just too many projects sometimes. So right now I've got my 97 TJ that I've had since the early 2000s.
Okay.
It's cut in half right now with a couple pallets of moto-built parts sitting on the ground, ready to go to, 4-link, some ORIs, some 43s. So yeah, full buggy with that one. Like I said, I've had it for a long time and was just kind of like, all right, it's ready for the next step. I've enjoyed it as is for a while, so let's just go down the rabbit hole with that. And then my daily driver, I've got a Gladiator. Nice and pretty, simple lift, 37, some nice moto belt, fenders, bumpers, winches. I mean, it still can get the job done if it wants to, but that's just my reliable daily driver. It looks good for the shop. So wife has a Jeep, mom has a Jeep, sister has a Jeep, aunt has a Jeep. So yeah. We've all got Jeeps.
So it's in your blood. This is a family thing. Yeah.
It is.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, when you say, just a simple lift and 37s, it makes all the Toyota guys a little jealous because it's a little more than a simple lift to get the 37s on there. So
well, the mom does have a Tacoma that she really loves in her Voodoo Blue. And the sister who drives a Jeep actually works for a Toyota dealership. So we've got some Toyotas, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I've had some issues with my Gladiator recently. Three motors in. So I'm every time I go see my sister at the dealership, I've been eyeing those new Land Cruisers. And I always said if I wasn't a Jeep guy, I would be in a Toyota for sure.
There's I'm not going to dive into all my thoughts on the new Land Cruiser, or if it's a Land Cruiser or only a Land Cruiser in badge only, but they're sharp. They're an interesting platform. So, all right. So the Trail Team Challenge, I believe this was the third year of the event. So give us a little bit of historical background of how this came to be and how you came to be involved in it as the director now.
Well, so I used to compete in some similar events,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed them. Just kind of my thing. And I think the Trail Team Challenge just comes down to being a well-rounded, off-roading etiquette, someone who will lead, someone who will spot, someone who will help when repairs need to be done, someone that'll leave it better than they found it type mentality. And there was an event back in 15, 16, I want to say, pre-COVID, called 36 Hours of Uwari. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yep.
So I competed a couple years of that. So it kind of is a spin off of that. They did like a little bit of military into it. They're making you all wear uniforms and, yelling if people are late and push-ups. And honestly, when you start to look around, most of us were former military and we're all like, bro, we're done with this. Like, can we just go compete? If these guys don't want to get out of their tent, they're just not going to get points. Like, let us,
Right.
So I kind of took that out of it again to make it really similar to me and you loading up in our rig and going for a multi-day off-road, wheeling event. And, when that happens, you plan what your route, using navigation. You're going to bring some spare stuff, maybe some stuff that's more common to break, or you're going to bring your food. You're going to bring whatever your, camping setup is. And you're going to go out and enjoy the outdoors. And unfortunately, sometimes stuff happens. And are you the type of person that's able to fix it and continue on and not let it ruin the trip? Or are you the kind that's going to sit there and just wave down AAA to come get you and go home, and it is what it is? That's not me.
Right.
So with taking the 36 Hours Uwari, doing my own spin on it, coming up with my own challenges and ideas, that's what kind of just came up with the Trail Team Challenge. Because when Uwari just kind of stopped, I don't know the backstory on what happened and why they didn't continue. I know some leadership had passed and whatnot, so I don't know if the passion wasn't there anymore or what. But I didn't see anything else like it. I was always trying to find something. I'm like, what? If you don't find it, why not do it yourself? And that's the tough part, is because I host it now, but man, it just kills me to not be able to compete myself, because it is truly like what I want to be doing.
Yeah, it's people don't realize it's fun to organize and do the leadership and get everybody there and see everybody else having a good time. But then sometimes you do those things and you're like, dude, my truck's not even muddy. Like I hadn't even been on a trail all week. So yeah, I get it. All right. So you talked about it's kind of a multifaceted off-road event. You've got different skill sets involved. So give us kind of, I guess, the elevator pitch on the different events within the competition.
So talking about the different ones is kind of tough, right? Because we don't want to really give out all the challenges, right? Because no one knows what they are leading up to it. Okay. But I kind of consider it like the ultimate off-road endurance challenge. Okay. So it doesn't, you can't come in, right? We'll see people in the off-road industry that have a lot of money. They've been successful in other things. They come in and they buy this $150,000 rig that a shop did a very well job. They go out, they wheel, they break, they get stuck all the time. And you're like, okay, you got more money than sense, right? Or you've got someone that goes out there in a stock, Jeep Rubicon maybe, and can wheel the crap out of it, and has experience and has knowledge of their vehicle. Or you're just out wheeling and, you may not have the best and the biggest rig, but you're a team player to where if I snap an axle shaft, you're right there with me, handing me tools. We're getting the shaft out, we're getting it plugged in or putting a new one in, and we're back on the trail and we're high-fiving and getting back to camp. And now we've got a story to tell. So basically we break it into 7 categories for the Trail Team Challenge. So navigation is one. We'll get into that some a little bit more. Marksmanship is actually one of them, which I know is kind of interesting when people hear about marksmanship, but that ties into the survival type stuff. So, if you're out there and something really bad happens and you're really out in the middle of nowhere, you've got to go into survival mode to a certain point, depending on how prepared you are. We've got first aid, and that's for yourself, but also the type of people or type of person I am and the crews that I go out with. If we're out on the trail and we get waved down and say, it's an injured hiker. And they're like, hey man, my buddy just fell in this cave over here. Yes, we have caves in Florida. Can you come help? Absolutely. I'm the type that would absolutely, let me grab what I got. Let's go see what we can do to help you. So we've got that in there. Obviously anything with off-road is recovery, whether you're getting stuck, whether we're simulating different situations to help other people or yourself. And then mechanical, again, if you break down, stuff happens. Can you fix it? Can you keep going? And then we do some precision driving. Obviously you're off-roading, you're wheeling. So we throw that in there too. So those are the main core, categories of challenges that we throw at them. And the way we do it is we give them a set of coordinates. So there's over 45 different coordinates for the weekend. So just like, again, me and you plan our map of our trail over the weekend, we're going here to here to here to here. And then when they get to a set of coordinates, they're read a script and they have no idea what it is. Okay. When they get there.
Okay.
Just like me and you, we're out wheeling and we blow a drive shaft, you joint in a drive shaft. Well, we didn't know that was going to happen. Right. We do the same thing to them. They don't know what any of these challenges are.
Okay.
And when they get there, they get read a script. So they'll say, hey, I'm here for challenge 13. Yep. You're at challenge 13. Here's the script, and I'll use the drive shaft one that I just used. Yeah. Your drive shaft just blew out. You've got to fix a U-joint. Time starts when, you open your door. Time ends when you're back in your vehicle, and the U-joint is signed off by the volunteer. And we're not going to make them pull out their drive shaft. We're going to provide them with a drive shaft. We're going to provide them with a U-joint, anything specialty. But yeah, it's all right, ready, go, and then we'll do something like that is timed would be, first place team with the fastest time gets this many points. And then every time after that gets a reduction of, so many points. And then whoever has the most points at the end of the weekend wins.
I gotcha. Okay. So we got a comment from Army Truck Josh. Says he's Josh from Team 8. Says it's like an endurance challenge where everything goes wrong, but intentionally. So
yes,
I think that describes it.
It is the best worst wheeling weekend ever.
the best worst.
Yeah, and we do try to, if you really break down some of the challenges, on the planning side, we have to find a balance of, time in the vehicle, time outside of the vehicle, mentally challenging, physically challenging stuff, because you can't just go out there and just annihilate these guys physically and ladies physically. That's just not going to be fun. That's kind of pointless. So we do want them to be in the vehicle. We do want them to off-road drive. We do want them to do some recovery stuff. And then there's a lot of teamwork that plays into it as well, to where, team dynamics is very interesting out there. And also seeing the teams interact with one another once the weekend starts to progress and they get to kind of meet each other, talk to each other, towards like the evening when they're actually in the same area.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are there, you're in your third year of this now, and have you seen any specific kind of team qualities or strengths, personalities that you kind of recognize on the front end? Oh, these guys are going to work well together. This is a good team.
Honestly, that is tough.
Okay.
That is tough to read any of these teams. Because I think just the type of people that it pulls is just an awesome category of people. Mm-hmm. Like it is the people who aren't going to give up. It is the people who truly are passionate and have fun being off-road and outside in the wilderness. So, everybody is really having a good time. There in the past, there maybe have been 1-2 teams like, I don't know. But, we do communicate with them leading up to the event. We do try to answer as many questions without giving all the secrets away so that they are a little bit in the mindset of it. But, at the end of the day, people who are here to challenge themselves and compete aren't the type that are just going to give up and have a negative attitude. They're the ones who are going to overcome all the time, and they're going to enjoy it, and then they're going to have that story to tell. So, the people that show up usually just end up being awesome people. I mean, my little community has grown just by hosting this event. Now I find myself wheeling with some of the former teams and the volunteers even. We see each other at events. We had a big event this past weekend I wasn't able to make it to. But I saw a couple of the teams. Now they were all camping together, hanging out, wheeling together. And a couple weeks ago, they didn't even know each other.
Awesome. Yeah. That's what makes all these community events so much fun.
Right.
So what about, you talked earlier, about you could have a guy out there in a stock truck or a guy that spent $150,000 and had a shop build it out. are there vehicle requirements slash restrictions, and the same with gear? Talk a little bit about what's required.
Sure. So we give them a minimum equipment list.
Okay.
And that stuff we do use throughout the weekend. So that's why it's a minimum. And I keep stressing minimum because you can bring anything and everything you want. We're not trying to tell you got to play within these parameters here on this. No, if this is what you carry on a normal trip, by all means, bring it. If you're comfortable with this equipment and you've used it and you're familiar with it, bring it. We're not, no one's going to stop you at a trailhead and say, no, you can't bring that stuff with you. Right. So again, we're trying to be real life with it.
So if you're the guy that wants to carry an extra 500 pounds of gear, that's on you. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And that is one thing that's interesting because we have had repeat teams. We've had volunteers that have become challengers that now volunteer. And when I talk to some of the teams, I'm like, oh, you guys packed a little differently this year, huh? And they're like, oh yeah, we're a lot lighter this year. We know a little bit more what to expect. But and as far as the rigs go too, the 500 pounds, we keep it to mid-sized vehicles. So we're talking your 4Runners, your Tacomas, your Broncos, your Wranglers, the Gladiators. Even the Gladiator we had this year, he was pretty big. I mean, we do limit it to 40-inch tires. And it does have to be a street legal vehicle because we do use, highways. Okay. We do use streets. So you've got to have insurance. And that's not anything against, any other, side-by-sides or buggies or anything. It's just, again, we're the trail team challenge. We're not the Bounty Hill challenge. We're not the side-by-side, whatever. Hey, if we get this built up and we're consistently doing 20 is kind of our max. If we're doing 20 every time, I don't mind open this up to, maybe a side-by-side category or a larger full-size vehicle, but let's just stick to the core right now, build that up, get them that momentum going. And then we can talk about other categories down the road because, there are options for that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I know you and I had talked about this earlier, that it's primarily been a lot of Jeeps, and that's what your business is. That's kind of what your friend group was. But to stress again, folks, this is open. If you're listening to this, we're recording this or actually streaming this live tonight, but you may be listening to this months from now because the next event won't happen again until next October, I assume. We're staying in October, or is that changing?
I think we're going to try to go back to February. The hurricanes really did us in, unless we go to a new location out of state, which is a possibility too. So,
okay. Well, you can check on their website to see the latest when you're listening to this. But what I want to stress is it's not just a Jeep event. Bring your Toyotas, bring your Broncos, anything that's street legal and 40-inch tires or less, and come out and join this event. All right, so we talked about the vehicles. We talked about the gear. And I know, like you said, you don't want to give away the kind of the secret sauce of different things. But is there a memorable challenge, maybe one that's not going to be repeated from past years, that even kind of exceeded your expectation, like something you dreamed up and then you were like, oh, this was really cool, this scenario?
I'll give this one away because even if we do this again, you still can't
prepare for.
You could, I guess, but the terrain changes it. So we have what we call the bird box challenge. Okay. The driver is blindfolded. They have to listen to the spotter through a course.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And again, that's where I go back to the teamwork, is just to see their face going, wait, what? Like, I'm going to be blindfolded? Yes. You have to trust your teammate. You have to trust your spotter beyond a reason of doubt. Like, yes, absolutely. And I'll say, again, the people that I usually end up out with, no questions asked. They would put a blindfold on in a second if I worked with them, But for some of these teams, they've never done that, and you'll see the personalities as well, that the driver may be the alpha, and the co-pilot takes up the backseat. So you never know. We might make you switch.
Okay.
Right? Because you're out on the trail. Heaven forbid
you get injured. Right.
I get injured. I eat something, allergic reaction. Co-driver's got to get me out of here and go somewhere. Well, does the co-driver know how to drive stick if you've got a manual vehicle? Those are things that you should be thinking about when you're going out on the trails. And so we really try to just dig into some experiences, some scenarios we've heard out there, and put that in there. But the bird box one, man, even the volunteers love it. And we do it. They go off camber. We've got some really technical stuff we put them through to where, blindfolded, a 1-inch drop doesn't feel like a 1 foot drop doesn't feel like a 1 foot drop, So to make them go off camber and be blindfolded, and that one is really fun. The volunteers love seeing that, hearing, because it's a lot of verbal communication, hearing the comments and the banter back and forth. It's like those
YouTube videos where they've got somebody standing in a chair and blindfolded, and they think that they're actually standing like on the side of a building about to jump. And
that is really
it.
That is it.
So. I like that. That's cool. There used to be more kind of for fun events like that, and unfortunately, I think a lot of the legality police have got that at some events. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are still able to pull it off.
Yep, that's my favorite so far.
Our friend of the show, Mike Johnson, says I might actually drive better with a blindfold. Mike, I started this episode with your video from VDR last week, your flop, but I'll save that for another day. So I'll agree with that statement for now. All right, so let's talk guns. Let's talk about the marksmanship aspect of this.
Okay.
How does that work? How does that work logistically? I'm assuming you guys are providing the firearms or the ammo or whatever's going down, or are people bringing that? What's the story there?
Okay, so we do marksmanship,
Okay.
and I do want to say that marksmanship doesn't just mean guns.
Okay, fair.
Okay, we did do guns this year. We do ask. No one is bringing any weapons during the event. Anything specialty like that is provided for them.
Gotcha.
We used an actual range facility with range masters. Our volunteers met with the range prior to make sure that all the safety stuff. We've provided eyes, we provided ears. The targets were set up in a fashion away from the general public that happened to be there. The range, had them sign the waivers, and they went through a safety briefing prior to shooting. So we pretty much crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's. In the range that we use, the outpost range in Lecanto, I don't know if you're ever down in Florida and you're into that. That is one of the most beautiful range. It's like a mini Bash Pro. It is nice. And they actually offer everything there. So they were super easy to work with. And again, we kept it super simple too. This year we did pistol and we did rifle. And we kept it at that. So that was 2 different challenges. One day it was pistol, one day it was rifle. But like last year, we had a gentleman, Eric Peralt, who was on Forged in Fire. He actually made throwing axes and throwing knives that we did for marksmanship last year. And then he custom made a pair of knives that went to the winners last year as one of the many prizes that they got. So we're always switching it up. So that's why I said marksmanship doesn't just mean gun. So there's a variety of things that could be done out there. And we tie that back to the survival. I know Florida's not so much, but when you're out in the desert, you could be out there for a couple of days.
Sure.
And you start running out of supplies. Last resort, man, I'm going to do what I got to do to survive.
Yeah. Speaking of Florida, and I know it's possible the event may move or try different locations, but for folks that haven't wheeled in Florida before, kind of give us a lay of the land down there, because my only experience in Florida is like the around the Destin 30A area. There's a state forest over there that I managed to wander myself into when the family's down there vacating. But give us kind of what the terrain looks like.
Yeah, so Florida is a lot of just state forest roads, nothing too crazy. We've got some private off-road parks, which is kind of where we go to. Florida being big on the limestone back in the day, there's a couple limestone quarries. Mosaic is a big, sulfur. They're constantly dredging, and they're leaving some land to be acquired, to be used for different things. There's people that have just gone and had thousands of acres and, been passionate off-roaders. Like Old Florida was a location we used last time. And that was just privately owned property where they had a great team of volunteers that went and built, sand traps, built, mountains, built hills, built, using culverts and rocks they pulled in from quarries, or, culverts from construction jobs and telephone poles to make crazy climbs and whatnot. Before that, there was another place called the Jeep Ranch we used our first year that was just next to a quarry as well. So a little bit of elevation there. But with what we're doing, things like blindfolding, we're able to make stuff, simple, really hard by doing what we do. So the biggest challenge is the layout, the land, what we're using and where we're doing it at. And we've actually changed every single year the location. So that's brought its own challenges, but that's kept the returning teams on their toes. And it's made it, fair play for kind of everybody. But, there's a park up in the Northeast that heard about our event and was like, hey, can you come do that here? And I'm like, well, I can. Unfortunately, I don't have the network up there that I have down here. And I couldn't do it without I kind of say my army of volunteers. We had 75 volunteers this year. We basically put 2 volunteers at every challenge. They're out there all day long. So we're not going to leave them out there by themselves. Something happens. But anyway, so there's 2 volunteers per challenge. I've got a media team floating around, getting all the media stuff. I've got medical team floating around the whole time with medical staff. And then you've got, myself and my volunteer coordinator, my head of media, my head of medical that are, kind of, overseeing everything. But, the lay of the land isn't the best, compared to Tennessee, compared to Moab, compared to Pennsylvania, but we make do with it. And it's challenging. It is challenging still. So.
No, like you said, I mean, it's maybe that's part of why it works, is it's not just a wheeling event, that you've got all these facets that you can incorporate there and take an area that's not traditionally challenging, and you put a blindfold on and it gets challenging real quick.
Yeah. I mean, for marksmanship, I don't need the side of a mountain. For first aid, I don't need, a bounty hill, so I'm able to take for precision driving. I'm able to take for recovery. I can flip a vehicle on its side anywhere I want, and you got to write it over. Like I can make you do reverse wenching anywhere in any kind of obstacle and make it challenging for you. And again, that's what, with us reading on the script, we can take a very open area and make it very challenging for you. And just kind of by simulating. And it would probably be a little bit more challenging too if we were on the side of a hill up in Windrock or something like that. But safety wise, I feel a little bit more comfortable because I'm not really putting them in as much jeopardy maybe as I would in some of those other situations, because, I've seen some other events going on and I've kind of like looked at them to see how we could maybe incorporate it. But there's an event down here where they're just sending people through the mud. They're just sending people through the water. 3 teams are hydrolocking their motor, in the first night of the event. And I'm like, not really what I'm trying to do, like purposely just destroy rigs, that's what you've got the Ultra 4 guys for. That's what you've got Bounty Hill paying out 5-10K for. Like that's that type of stuff. Trail team challenge, week is really for anywhere at any time around the country.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the navigation part of it. First question. Now, is this a base camp type event? Are you sleeping at the same place every night? You go do the challenges and come back?
Yes, exactly. So we do give them a limited area. And again, we're not trying to have people pull up with pop-up campers. Again, the mindset is that you're in the rig for multi-day and you're going, because it is an event, we don't want to have to make them reset every single time. But once they check in and they get, all their equipment checked and everything gone in, they do set up a base camp. It's a 10x10 area. So it's not massive, but 10x10 area, their vehicle parks right in front of it. They can come back to that camp as much as they want throughout the weekend.
I see.
So they can do that. And then they stay there at night, go back out the next day, compete, and then come back. Yeah.
And so as far as the navigational challenge aspects, without giving anything away, is this all, can you bring a GPS? Can you use digital equipment? Is it all paper maps? How's that all work?
No, so we're keeping with the times. We're letting
Okay.
the teams use whatever they want to use, whatever they're familiar with, whatever they're comfortable with, whatever they're going to use next weekend as soon as they leave the trail team challenge and they want to go hit the road. So yeah, we're trying to be as friendly and really let them use whatever they're comfortable with. There's nobody, I'm not going to bring in a sponsor and, hey, you guys got to use this, just to have them as a sponsor.
Right.
It's like, if you're using Onyx and you're using Gaia and you're using Avenza and that's what you're familiar with, that's what you're going to use next week when you go wheeling. So you can use it. Now, I will say, because we use the state forest here, the state forest recommends Avenza. That is the most updated map. We did tell all the teams that you do need to have Avenza and you at least need to reference it throughout the weekend, right? Because, we have to respect all the laws, all the rules, all the correct trails. And, some people that were like, well, what do you mean, Mark? And I said, well, look, here's Onyx. See where this says this? That's not a trail anymore. That's a ticket, like nothing against Onyx, but that's not the most up-to-date current for this facility that we're using.
That's a wonderful point, and we deal with the same thing, as do events around the country. But when we do our events at Windrock, and people say, "What's the best navigational app?" The best navigational app is the one that is most up to date for where you are at the time.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I've got all of them on my phone, and some have perks over here, and some don't. But at the end of the day, we made it very clear. I'm a Tread Lightly trainer myself. So we're here on behalf of Tread Lightly. All the teams, all the volunteers take the Tread Lightly 101 course. Again, Florida Off-Road Foundation is sponsoring this event. We're here to promote, certain aspects to being an off-roader in the community. The last thing I want is us to be off trail where we're not supposed to be doing what we're not supposed to do.
Right.
So Avenza is kind of the default, but we do let them use whatever they're comfortable with.
Well, talk a little bit more about Tread Lightly and how you got involved with them. Were you doing Tread Lightly prior to the event, or did it come about once you kind of started putting the event together? How'd that work out?
So back to the 36 Hours UARI, I met Danielle, who was one of the heads of Tread Lightly.
Yeah.
Great individual. I learned then about the organization. And, just something with it, stuck with me. A part of the 36 Hours UARI, I really liked the fact that we did do some posts in the ground with some railing, because some trails were, being made that were in areas they weren't supposed to be.
Right.
And that was actually a part of their event as well. It's like, hey, when we do our event, we're going to find a way to give back. And since that stuck with me, it was the same thing. I got home, I looked more into Tread Lightly, got more involved with it, and always said, okay, that's going to be my thing too. Every time we have a trail team challenge, we're going to find a way to give back. Now, in the past, unfortunately, our first year at Jeep Ranch, they were getting bought out, and we were the last event they ever had. So we didn't get to do too much there, which was really sad because everybody really loved that park. The next year we did Old Florida Off-Road. Again, another private park, but they were in the process of making a memorial trail, like a veterans trail. So they had different services, the flags throughout the trail. And during that event, the teams actually helped make that trail, create that trail, decorate the trail, so that was there for future events. And then when this year came up, again, being a Tread Lightly trainer, I was in a meeting with Don Cox, who is, we kind of call him our Florida Tread Lightly leader, even though I don't think it's an official title, but he has taken Tread Lightly, a friend of mine who I introduced to the program. But again, he has taken it and he was ambassador of the year, I think a year or two ago for Tread Lightly. So he's at every event now doing Tread Lightly stuff. So again, Don, thank you so much. But was on a meeting with Don, myself, Lowell from Tread Lightly, and the Florida with Lacucci management area staff. And there had been an ongoing project about signage in the forest. So, being in Tread Lightly, no, I'm not like a snitch. No, I'm not like a tree hugger. I kind of take it as I'm really there to be the voice of the off-road community, right?
Sure.
If you're going into these parks, and Avenza is your preferred app, why is that not posted somewhere? Why is that not easily accessible? I shouldn't have to go to a website to click fine print, to go to this link, to go to that link, just to find out the map that I need to be using. And me and Don had talked about that. So, Don came up with this sign project So the state actually, funded the signs, the actual kiosks, they call them. They have a set of prisoners that built them up in Tallahassee. And Florida Off-Road Foundation donated to Tread Lightly the funds to print the actual signs themselves and also to rent the equipment from Sunbelt, because we had to use an auger to get down in the ground. We had to use a crane to lower the roofs down on them. So in that meeting with Dawn, we were like, hey, like the timeline is kind of lining up perfect for the Trail Team Challenge. It's in the exact area we're going to be using. Can I give you all the staff and the volunteers to get these signs done?
Okay.
And they were like, oh, yeah, actually, okay. So with Lacoochee Wildlife Management Area has a couple different properties. Croom is one of them. So what we did is we got together a bunch of volunteers. We did one a couple weeks before all the hurricanes hit. Basically figured out our plan, our strategy, the equipment that we needed to have on site. And a couple of those volunteers were then the lead during the actual Trail Team Challenge event. And we installed 3 different signs during the Trail Team Challenge event for the With Lacoochee Wildlife Management Area on behalf of the Florida Off-Road Foundation and Tread Lightly through the Trail Team Challenge.
Cool. No, that's very cool. Yeah. Tread Lightly, we're big fans. We're a business member. We had Mike from Tread Lightly on the show here talking all things Tread Lightly. So I'm right there with you. It's really cool to see all the resources come together, especially getting those big donations, because getting that equipment rented and stuff is not cheap.
Yeah. And, the state has stuff, but I kind of joke. It's like, well, Timmy only works the second Wednesday of the month, and he's the only one certified for that. And Billy is the one who operates the truck and the trailer, and he only works, and it's just like, oh my God. So they're never going to all be together. And you call up old Florida Off-Road Foundation and Tread Lightly and say, hey guys, what can we do to get this done? And they go, let's go, Mark. Here you go. Here's the support. Let's do it.
Yeah. Speaking of the Florida Off-Road Foundation, let me pull this one up. This is their license plate. If you're a Floridian, you can get this tag. But they were, I believe, your title sponsor for this year. Is that correct?
Yes, they were. So the Florida Off-Road Foundation basically has these tags that have been available now a couple years. You know how that tag stuff works. You got to pre-fill so many
of them.
Yeah. And then the money goes into, back to the community basically. And it's told, X amount for marketing, X amount, I believe, for, nonprofits and whatnot. I'm not on their staff, so I'm not exactly sure, but
sure.
I know that they are huge on, off-road projects, classes, events, and just bringing awareness to the off-road, community and for the community, really. So I've heard of, some clubs that are instructing like 101 off-road classes or recovery 101 classes that may be at like a private location, and the various clubs are, looking for grants and funding saying, hey, if we can get the cost down or the cost to zero, we can get pretty good interaction and we can get some people here, can you help us?
Yep.
And that's where they're coming back in to say, yes, let's get more people being safe off-roaders. Let's get people involved in Tread Lightly and making sure that, they're giving back to, what they're using or they're just more informed about, rights and wrongs. And, the last event in with Lacoochee was their biggest horse weekend of the year. Right. Well, Tread Lightly touches on that. What do you do when you come across, equestrian horses? Right. What do you come, so that was a big thing that, with Lacoochee told us, hey, Mark, this is the biggest horse weekend. Please stress this. Absolutely. It's in the 101 class. And again, we touch on that. Okay. Every team, all the volunteers, when you come across a horses weekend, what do you do? How do you handle it? And the Florida Off-Road Foundation is just awesome. They're so active. They're at all the events around town, really trying to give back to the community. So, we're seeing it go to good use, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love how, just in the 3 years you've been doing this, it sounds like the community aspect of it and partnering with these other organizations is really coming together, and it just starts to grow and people start to get involved because I'm a firm believer that people want to be involved, and in this off-road community, in giving back to it. And a lot of times they just need somebody to tell them how and where. People will raise their hand, put me to work. You just gotta get them where they need to be. So it's really cool what you guys have done down there, and the signage. Those signs look really nice. That's a good job. I want to make sure I pull up. We got some other pictures that you'd sent me, just so folks can get an idea here. This looks like a marksmanship challenge.
Yep.
And
the outpost range.
Okay. And here we've got some recovery going on. I'm assuming this is a staged recovery.
It is a staged recovery. So with the various sponsors too, not only just the Florida Off-Road Foundation, but some of the other sponsors, we do try to pick based on quality and how do I say this, functional things that will be used in the situations, right? So, Pull Pal this year is our first year sponsor. One of our challenges was using a Pull Pal. Not many scenarios, people are like, well, what is this exactly?
Right.
Here's what it is. Here's how you use it. Here's the challenge. You got to use it, So we do try to tie in our other sponsors into the various challenges. Blackbeard Fire Starters this year was on board. Well, that goes right into survival stuff. So we did a challenge focused on them. There's Cosmo Tires this year was with us. They gave away a set of tires. So really anybody who's involved in it, we try to do these challenges around them and their products to highlight them, but also to show there is a practical use and they are good products. They are reliable. They can be, helpful in certain situations.
Yeah. Here's a canoe aspect. That's interesting. Okay.
Yep.
There's the signage again.
Yep.
And looks like we're doing some repair here.
So we do mechanical.
Yep.
And again, we don't make anybody take apart their vehicle. We'll either, again, give them a drive shaft, give them the U-joints. I don't want to give up any of the other ones because we do change them. But my dad is a pretty good sport. He's got $1,000 Jeep TJ. And he pretty much lets us simulate anything and everything on his Jeep throughout the weekend. Whereas now when he actually goes and wheels it, he gives some people twitches when they see his bright green Jeep rolling around. They're like, oh, what's going to be broke on that now? Because we've used it the last couple of years for the mechanical stuff. So.
Yeah. Now, do you get, because, speaking from experience with my group, we'd come for the simulations, but we'd end up breaking our own stuff at the same time. So do you have this happen where you have to do unplanned mechanical repairs?
Yeah. So my dad has told me that one team, actually, you know who it was? It was Ray. Ray showed up last year and just about had my dad's Jeep apart in like 2 minutes, and he had to go, stop. That's not it, guys. That's not it. Ray and his partner in crime, Lars, who I couldn't have done this year without, were actually competitors that we brought back on staff because they have the understanding. But yeah, they went guns a-blazing, and he had to say, hold on, guys, hold on, don't take apart my engine just yet. Okay. It's something a little bit simpler, and then what we also do is I've been pretty kind to my dad for him allowing me to use his Jeep is, hey, here's the challenges. Here's a couple parts that if this were to break, here's a brand new one,
Oh, okay.
So we've done stuff like that, giving him all brand new parts in case because a team did go, I think, to do like a tensioner one time and they snapped the bolt. And it was like, slow down a little bit, but he was able to fix it. He had the part and stuff to get it back. But worst case scenario, we make them drag it out of the event and put it on a trailer and we get it home.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Mark, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what's the future? Maybe not plans, but maybe hopes and dreams of the Trail Team Challenge and where this could go, over the next few years outside of Florida or within different areas of Florida, or just give us what's in your head.
Yeah, I'd like to make it. I mean, it is a lot of work. Sometimes I'm like, how do I balance the shop, balance the trail team challenge? I've got my first baby girl on the way with my wife. So, that's going to be interesting here, making sure I give them the time that they
Oh yeah.
ultimately deserve. And again, we've done this in February all the other years. And the biggest thing for anybody who's interested in sponsoring out there is reaching out to the sponsors, figuring out, who we want to be involved, who can we benefit with and benefit for during the event. February was tough because you're asking, months and months in advance because you're wanting to promote them. You're wanting to give them, a value to their donations, their teamwork, their sponsorship. And February we found was really, really tough because, the way the budgets work and whatnot. And we're like, well, what if we push it to October, similar weather here in Florida? That way we could start in January 1st and really promote these companies.
Have the whole year. Yeah.
Yeah, really, because again, we're not just people like, hey, give us this and we're going to throw it at our event. No, we really want to build a unique community, which we've done with, some of our main sponsors. So we moved it to October. For anybody that watched anything this year, the hurricanes have not been favorable to Florida this year. And that made it very stressful and very difficult on myself, the staff, the volunteers. Unfortunately, we lost 3 teams right before the event due to, active or reserve and guard members being activated, Coast Guard members, FWC members being activated, working, and also just the stress. A lot of people, down and out, lost houses, lost buildings,
Sure.
businesses. So October it was brutal. So I think we're going to push back to February again.
Okay.
I think the partnerships, the teams that we've built in the community with some of these brands that now are really seeing it being the 3rd year, understand it more. It is kind of something that's been hard to explain to people exactly what we're doing. But now that we're 3 years in, I feel like we're being seen. Yeah. Our media team took it to the next level this year, even with just, social media stuff and marketing and branding and logos and color schemes and stuff. So I'm hoping that that'll give us some, validity in the industry and in the off-road world, and podcasts like yourself here too. So we're probably going to end up doing February of 2025, right? No, 26
Okay.
is kind of what I'm shooting for right now. So that'll give us a time to figure out, the location, because we have changed locations every time. Not ideally, but it's just kind of worked out with properties closing and whatnot. The state forest was very nice to us this year. We had a great campground for the challengers. We had a great campground for the volunteers. It worked out really well. There are some things that we'd like to be able to do that we weren't able to do because we are on public land, and you can't necessarily go 60 miles an hour, or you can't climb and turn and
Gotcha.
really fast in there.
Yeah.
And we'd like to add that back into it, but we also use some private properties this year as well. And then the Florida Off-Road Foundation actually had a film crew come out with us, which we haven't told anybody publicly. Everyone who is there knew, but there was a production company who was interested in making a TV show out of it. So
hey, now there you go.
So that is breaking news here on Overland Weekly.
I like that.
But they came out to shoot again, same thing, to kind of understand exactly what it is. How could we make this a show? Is it even doable? And again, I don't know. They came out, they shot a bunch of footage. They're probably going to put together, I believe, a teaser reel. We're going to get together with them and in a couple of weeks and debrief and see. I mean, I think it would be great for TV because again, this is for your everyday off-roader. This isn't. You don't have to have an Ultra 4 car to come out here and compete. You can just have a very decent built rig and a great set of skills, and you could walk away winning this thing. So we'll see. New locations, maybe. TV, maybe. February 2026 is what I'm shooting for.
I love it. You've talked. Let's touch on a couple of things on registration. I'm assuming once registration opens for February 2026, if you're interested, you need to sign up sooner rather than later, because I'm assuming there's a limited number of participant slots.
Yep. So we do 20 teams right now.
Okay.
20 teams, 2-person teams. Typically, we will open registration 6 months prior to the event. So that just gives us time to kind of get the word out there. We're going to start going to some local events, setting up some tents, just talking to people, some Overland expos and whatnot. And then actually, one of the teams this year that competed was telling me how they do a lot of just, Tough Mudders and all these other, endurance events. And
Okay.
And they actually brought it up. I never thought about it. They were like, well, hey, what if you do like an early registration discount? And I'm like, okay, that's not actually a bad idea. So we may run, something early on, say, hey, you sign up now, boom, you're going to save X amount of money.
Right.
Is something that makes sense. But yeah, it's first to 20. And, even some of the companies, that have sponsored have also paid for teams to enter too. So, if you're a company out there and you're not like, hey, we're not going to have anything to donate, but how many of these companies have these ambassadors or these sponsored rigs? Okay, you got a tire company, send out your sponsored people. Come out here. You own a shop. You got build the baddest Toyotas in the Southeast. Send one of your rigs down here with your team. What's like our registration last year was $500. $500 to send a team down to compete. Bragging rights. I mean, this last year, first place walked around with over $3,000 in prizes. I mean, they got a free set of tires. They got half off Raceline wheels. They got a pull pal. I mean, Rotopax was involved. Adams drive shaft. I mean, there's some quality brands that these guys guys and girls were walking away with. I think second place got over $2,000 worth of prizes, and third place was just over $1,000. So Rinse Kit was involved this year. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that a $500 entry
that's super cool. I like the idea on getting shop builds involved in it, and who knows, that might become it's a whole nother division of it one day down the line if you had enough of them. So my Toyota friend shops, if you're listening, Rocket City, OTM, ACC, Patch, he's calling you out. You guys come down here and compete with each other.
It's funny you say that because I actually went old school this year. Because I really did again, I own a shop. I know a lot of the shops. Our Tampa Bay community, I think, is unlike any other. I mean, I can call any one of these shops in town right now and they'll pick up, what's up, Mark? How's it going? Like, we all get along around here. There's so many Jeeps down here in Tampa. Like, we're all friendly. If I need something, they got it in stock. But I actually printed out flyers. I put stickers and I mailed out over 150 envelopes to shops all over the Southeast. I mean, I was on Google, I was on Facebook,
Sure.
I was on Yelp, just looking for off-road shops. And, and it had a cover letter. Hey, here's who I am. Here's our event. If you're interested in getting involved, send a team. At least would you just mind maybe putting our poster in your window or somewhere on your shop just to get the word out about the event. So we've had we had a 4Runner this year. We had an FJ this year. The FJ got third place. I think the 4Runner actually was right behind him in either fourth or fifth. A lot of Jeeps. We had a Chevy Colorado last year, a Tacoma 4Runner last year. Ray and Lars were in their FJ40. So we've had a good spread, but this year it was just a lot of Jeeps. And we're trying the Broncos, the 4Runners, the Tacomas, the Chevy Colorados, the Ford Rangers. I mean, we're trying to get into there, but I don't know. You're a Toyota guy. I can say it. These Bronco people, they're a different breed.
Well, if they come, they gotta bring all their spare tie rods with them. Even down there in Florida, they're probably going to need them.
Yeah, that, and our shirts aren't button down polos from the boardroom, so I don't know, man. T-shirts and ball caps for them. I don't know if that's their style.
That's funny. No, they're cool trucks. We're joking, not joking with the Bronco guys. I've got a few comments I want to make sure we show here. So our friend Jason Bush says calling all shops. I agree with that. I think the shop aspect is cool. I'm thinking through my mind here now. Albert, Mill Creek, get your rally rats guys together. This would be perfect for you guys. George D. George says, very cool on the possible show. Good luck with that. I agree. I think this is the kind of reality TV that I know I would subscribe to. Yes, Mike says, gotta love Ray. Yeah. Hey, again, this wouldn't have happened. Ray puts people together. That's who he is. So good deal. All right. Well, before I let you go, Mark, let me, we always run through some just fun rapid fire questions here. So,
okay.
All right. First thing, favorite off-road trail snack?
Oh, that's easy. Beef jerky.
Oh, beef jerky. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, are you the guy that has to go in the gas station and think about which one each time and try something new, or you've got a faithful?
Yeah, anything hot, spicy, or blackened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Question number 2. If you could only listen to one artist or one album while you're on the trail for the day, what are you queuing up?
You probably would never get this answer, but I actually love EDM music. I'm a big Tiesto fan.
Okay. I don't know what Tiesto is, but okay.
Yeah, Tiesto's a big DJ, and I don't know, EDM, the high energy music always just puts me in a good mood. Sometimes it's just really good background noise and it drowns out those second thoughts when you're trying to focus on wheeling.
I can see that.
So yeah, I'll go with Tiesto.
Right. We'll go with that. That's at least that breaks the last 2 episodes. It's been Taylor Swift, so I'll take this. We're going EDM now. Yeah,
that made me want to roll my Jeep.
Oh, shots fired. All right, number 3. This is an important question. DeWalt or Milwaukee?
Team Red.
Ugh. Oh man, I liked you until this point, Mark, and now, yeah.
I do got a DeWalt tool cabinet at the shop, but right after I thought I was going Team DeWalt, Milwaukee started pumping out some stuff, and I went Team Red.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Milwaukee guy. Everybody knows I'm a DeWalt guy. Although I will say that I scored a Craftsman brand cordless heat gun at the flea market this weekend. I couldn't pass it up. $5 for the cordless heat gun. But I had to get the adapter to use my DeWalt battery with it. So there you go.
Hey.
All right. Manual or automatic transmission for off-roading?
Manual for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still got some old school in you there.
Yeah, my 97's a manual. My everyday driver, so I'm not, when I'm sitting in traffic on the interstate, is an automatic Gladiator. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, just being able to feel the gears and know exactly where the range is. Something hits and you just pop it into neutral real quick. I don't know. It's just easier in the manual. I like it. I like to feel better.
All right. And last question. And this one's a difficult one, I know. Most challenging trail you've driven, or let's say, recently that you were like, man, that thing was legit. I know up there at Uwari, there's definitely a few.
Yeah. I don't know. There's nothing like your first time in Moab when you've never been and your first trail is on Moab Rim.
Okay.
That's pretty. That first, as soon as you climb up, you've got that one crawl to the right where it's like 40 stories down.
40 stories. Yeah. We're not counting in feet. We're counting in stories now.
Yeah. And that was my first trail, my first time in Moab. And I was like, okay, this is Moab. All right. So that one's kind of fun. I mean, we did do some other ones, for the weeks we were there, but just being it, that was my first trail on my first day. That was a little fun.
Got your blood flowing?
It got my blood. It was like, wake up. Okay, there's some serious stuff out here. Not that I ever doubted it, but I was experiencing it firsthand. But man, I don't know, something about Roush Creek. I love Roush Creek in Pennsylvania. I just feel like there's a lot of everything there. The part of it's like a quarry there. Some of the stuff you go down, like I believe it's called Devil's Den, and it's just a V of rocks and trees, and it's like, pick your line, go. And like, that's what I enjoy. Like, that to me really tests my skill, not just follow this trail up. Okay, cool. There's one obstacle, go. When you're sitting at the bottom and it's just rocks, it's like, all right, get to the top.
Well, it's called Devil's Den. I mean, it's always the ones with the sinister names.
Yeah.
You know, there's some meme about, you know, the Devil's Ballsack Trail or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's funny.
Yep.
All right.
So I'd have to kind of throw it between those two there.
Good deal. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on, for talking to us about Trail Team Challenge. I see a few more things in the chat here. People are excited about it. Bush is calling out some 80 guys. That's 80 series Land Cruisers, saying, yeah, you guys get down there. You can get your solid axles down there and show us up. That's you know, that's an aspect we didn't talk about. But you know, when you just have to be street legal and in 40-inch tires, then, you know, do you bring an IFS truck? Do you bring a solid axle truck? Is there going to be pavement involved? And you don't know all the answers until you get there. So I think that's part of the challenge.
Yeah. And there was, you know, this year we had a team from Georgia. We had a team from, you know, down south in Miami come up. So we had about 8 or 9 rigs that actually trailered, you know, all the way in. This year to compete. So we do have, you know, truck and trailer parking for them, which is secure. And then you do have to take highways and, you know, forest roads and public transit to get around to some of the private properties and whatnot. But, you know, anything's fair game. And, you know, some people think like Ray and Lars, they're in that FJ40. They didn't have a lot of room to bring a lot of gear. So you've got to get creative in how you store stuff, how you pack stuff, you know, what you're going to leave at camp kind of comes into play. Like, are you going to risk running back to camp to get stuff if you leave it, you know? And then you've got some guys that are, like we said, the team this year was in a Jeep Gladiator. So he's got all kinds of room in the back, you know? Well, the second year we went through what started off at about 90 degrees. Middle of the day, we went to torrential downpour with tornado warnings to 30 degrees, all in the same weekend.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. So, you know, do you chance running a rig with no top, no doors, or are you running a rig with a hard top on it, or, you know, what's your setup going to be? You know, all that stuff comes into play. But again, that does too if you're going on your own trip on any given weekend and you and a buddy are hitting the trails.
Yep. I love it.
Yep. All
right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. One more. I've got a few comments coming in. Some of them I'll put up here. Mike says, we love Fatty's Crack for the best trail name. I've been to Fatty's Crack. That is appropriately named.
Where's that one at?
That is at Hawk Pride in Alabama.
Yep. Okay.
So, all right. Thanks, Mark. Been fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for joining us.